Fantasy Football Podcast, which is, of course, no longer the Bulletproof Fantasy Football Podcast because we are minting a new show today. In fact, this is the third maiden voyage of the new Bulletproof Fantasy Football Podcast, which is, of course, not the Bulletproof Fantasy Football Podcast. We are sweating bullets today, and this is not a solo show anymore. It is going to be a duo, a dynamic duo. Obviously, I am Batman, and with me, as always, is our designated Robin, Jacob. Jacob, care to introduce yourself?
You know, with like the blonde hair, the political backstory. If anything, I think I'm a little more Harvey Dent. And if I get the lighting just right, maybe we can pull that off. I'm not sure, but I was thinking about Harvey Dent and Batman a little bit this week because you either live long enough as a hero to see yourself become a villain. Is that the quote? I think that's the quote.
I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm a villain now. I bought my first ever share of CeeDee Lamb since like rookie drafts. So that was pretty villainous of me. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a lot else. It's always fun. The way I pitch the show is that if people are in the Bulletproof Discord or they follow us on Twitter and they see us like tweeting back at each other in furious arguments, it's that, but you'll actually be able to follow what we're saying because it won't just be paragraphs broken up constantly and interspliced with each other. So it's all of the entertainment and the animosity, but with coherent sentence structure.
We'll even let each other speak.
No.
See? So we're going to cover a little bit about the podcast. We're going to cover a little bit of everything. We're going to primarily probably focus on Dynasty because that's what I like the best. Jacob will probably force a bunch of like redraft and best ball and DFS on us because that's what he likes the best.
I won't force DFS on you. Not here.
Yeah, we'll see. Probably not. But so we're going to talk a little bit about everything. It's a bit like it's a player podcast with also, and of course, Jacob is going to force a bunch of high level strategy stuff on us that doesn't matter. If you just pick the right players, you obviously get to win. Which brings me to the next point. There are a number of offenses in the NFL that are slumping already. We are 2 weeks in. We are in major crisis mode in a number of cities right now. Number one on that list is none other than the Chicago Bears, which I'm really bewildered by because I remember last year being firmly in the stance of, hey, you know what? The Bears might suck today, but they're going to get rid of Nagy. Things will get better. They can't possibly get worse. And here we are 2 weeks in and things are decidedly worse with no hope for the future. I'm abandoning ship. I'm already off the ship. The ship is 20 miles beyond me now. What are you doing with the Bears at this point? Because what the hell are they even doing? It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I think in my tweet I called them unserious. Right? They're an unserious organization. They would rather. That's what they are. They're not serious. They are not taking the responsibility with which they've been given seriously. They have a responsibility to have a football organization that wins football games, right?
Okay, hold on a second, because I started off this whole podcast with like a Batman and Robin thing, and now you're throwing in like the Spider-Man thing, like with great responsibility comes great power or whatever.
It's true.
Like let's stick with one superhero for the show, please.
All right. They were vested with a responsibility to try and win football games, and they have not acted as though that's what they think that their goal is. They have acted like a team that wants to lose gracefully. They want to lose conventionally. They want to lose in a way that they get embarrassed less, right? And you see Bears fans that seemingly co-sign this. I saw Bears fans online being like, hey, we were underdogs both games. We're 1-1. That's pretty good. I don't know. We were competitive with the Packers. We were in the game. We played good defense. We ran the ball well. And I'm a Colts fan. I'm aghast at the product that's been put on the field, but I'm actually happy about it. I've been venting to people where I'm so sick and tired of the Colts being like a pretender where they're just tricking themselves into thinking that there's some new aging quarterback away from being relevant when all they're trying to do is just lose in the first round and preserve their jobs. But I understand rationally why the Colts are acting that way, because Reich and Ballard, I think, are in year 5. The Bears just hired these people. They're in year 1. They have a long leash. Why would you wish to expend your leash in such an embarrassing fashion? They have 28 pass attempts in 2 games. That is embarrassing. That's an abomination. That's not football. That's not trying to win. They had a drive last game that they began that drive down 14 points in the 4th quarter. It was an 88-yard drive. They ended up getting stopped on 4th and 1 from the goal line. They had 0 passing yards. They had one passing attempt. I mean, they moved the ball down the field. Some of those were dropbacks that Fields scrambled on, but like they accomplished nothing in the actual game. They scored no points. They wasted a lot of time. Even if they had scored a touchdown in that drive, that would have hurt their ability to win the game because they took so much time off the clock. And then more importantly, like, do they not understand that it doesn't actually matter whether they lose by 14 or 28 on Sunday Night Football? Do they not understand it doesn't even matter if they win Sunday Night Football? Like, do they not look at the Chiefs play, right? Or the Chargers, do they not, like, or the Bills? Do they not watch the Bills and be like, oh yeah, like, we're not in that class of team. We're not actually competing for the Super Bowl this year, right? That's not our goal. Our goal is to find out where we are. How do you find out where you are? Do you have a quarterback? I've seen now Justin Fields play in a full season worth of NFL games. I don't have a fucking clue if he's any good. I have no idea because he hasn't gotten the chance to play football yet. My inclination is he's probably not good because I would think that if he was good, coaches would let him play football. But even if that's the case, like, wouldn't you want to know in real NFL games if he can throw the football? It's insane.
I have so many things that I need to say about all of this. Number one, hearing like woe is me about a Colts fan and oh no, the team has been bad for so long. You went through like Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck successfully.
I have no problem with them being bad. I don't mind bad. I don't like striving for mediocrity. I actually quite embrace bad. Mediocrity.
Were you not the one celebrating the Carson Wentz trade this time last year?
And I was very wrong, but I would say that of the things that the Colts have done, like, I think that the Wentz trade, like, in hindsight, it's obviously the most detrimental because they gave up the most. But out of going for Rivers and then going for Wentz and then going for Ryan. Oh, and then the other one in that people don't talk about as much because he's a great player is trading a first-round pick, the 13th overall pick, for a defensive tackle. But of those like four moves, great defensive tackle, who I love very much, but he's a defensive tackle. And that's in conjunction with the Rivers move, right? They could have not done that. They could have picked a quarterback, but instead first round pick for a defensive tackle and then sign Philip Rivers. Of those decisions, like the Wentz one is the one I'm most okay with because at the time he was a 28-year-old quarterback who had flashed elite franchise quarterback potential. It hadn't happened in a couple of years, but like I can at least understand the idea of like maybe if we get Carson Wentz back to that, then we have a franchise quarterback and he's young enough that he could be our franchise quarterback, you know, both immediately and for the future. Like, was it the best way to try and do that? Probably not. I would have much preferred if they just traded up and tried to get Trey Lance or Justin Fields or something. But like, I would rather that. Like, that had a goal and it had like a real goal. Like Matt Ryan was like, last year we didn't make the playoffs. This year we're gonna go 10-7, baby. We're gonna win the AFC South. We're gonna lose the first round, and we're not gonna get fired. Like, that was the goal. Like, the Matt Ryan was like the most like triple condom, don't get fired move I've ever seen. I hated it. Gross.
Yeah, I'm like it's yeah, they're not good enough to win. No. They only have Michael Pittman, the league MVP, and now he's out. And you've seen obviously what has happened to the Colts in his absence. And anybody
shout out Paris Campbell.
Oh gosh,
would you like to guess what Paris Campbell's targets per route run was this week?
I think he had a few targets, didn't he? Or did he have a few in week one? He had like 6, I thought, 1 week. Am I
this week his targets per route run was 0.03.
So it wasn't this week then.
No.
Like he'd fit in with the Bears. He could take like, you know, a third of their targets with that that kind of raw targets.
Wouldn't he fit in
elite 11
pass. Wouldn't he fit in nicely next to N'Keal Harry and Dante Pettis? I think that's a good spot for him.
Last year, this time, when we're looking at the Bears, we're saying, you know, the future is whatever it is. We don't know yet. Anything could happen. It could be amazing. Nagy could be awesome like he was in Kansas City. That might have been Andy Reid. It's not that hard to know. It was probably Andy Reid. But it could have been Matt Nagy as well. We don't know yet.
Probably Patrick Mahomes.
It was probably Patrick Mahomes. Well, I mean, they did some like Andy Reid's done some magical things with some not very good quarterbacks.
Right. Nagy was there during the Smith year. My bad. Yeah. He wasn't even there for the Mahomes year.
So like Nagy was like, whatever. He's probably gone if it doesn't work. So it's fine. We got hope in the future. And then we were like, okay, well, they still have Allen Robinson. They got this Darnell Mooney kid who was like, okay, like he'll be a decent wide receiver too in the NFL. He'll be very good at fantasy football, but that's fine. And then they'll draft a wide receiver next year. That's going to be fine. Like they got draft picks. That's going to be great. They go out and draft like Venus Williams or something in like round 3, which is really bizarre because why would they do that? The guy's like 25 years old, and now it's like, this coaching staff is unlikely to go anywhere. A one and done coaching staff is extremely rare. I mean, unless they do really bizarre things like, drafting Travis Etienne in the first round when you already have James Robinson on the team, like go kick your kicker. That makes a lot of sense. And then just call really weird plays all the time. Like those are the kinds of things that might get you one and done. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility right now because they just passed 11 times in a game. They were losing by 2 touchdowns the entire game, basically. So like there's a lot of just inconsistent logic being applied by this coaching staff. And just, I can't even come up with the right word to describe the idiocy of everything going on in Chicago. So anyways, enough about Chicago. Wait, no, we're not enough.
Oh, we should talk about,
are you buying or selling Justin Fields at this point?
So this will be like my answer to a lot of people, but I'm kind of like bothing in the sense that on players with, this is exact, Drew warned you at the start of the show. He was like, I'm going to give player takes. Then Jacob's going to apply a bunch of macro babble. Here we go. On players that have a high degree of variance to their price in the sense that they've either gone drastically up or drastically down over the course of the first 2 weeks in people's eyes, I just want to be active on all sides of the trade market. So to be clear, like coming into this season, I sold all my Fields because I thought that the Bears were an unserious joke of an organization. Basically after the draft, like once day 2 happened and they were like, we won't draft a wide receiver in round 2. We will draft Velus Jones in round 3. I was like, all right, we're done with this. And then, I mean, now if he's like dropping in price, like I don't think the bets changed all that much. I could be interested in buying Justin Fields. Like if we could get him for like a wide receiver 2 type situation, if we get him for like a vet aging running back, I'd love to do that. But I'm certainly not like racing out to buy him at all costs. And if I had Fields, I would be in active trades to move him. And if the Fields manager, it looks like they're trying to win this year and they're panicked that Fields will not help them in that regard, I would probably try to look at like a Dalvin Cook or a Derrick Henry or Joe Mixon or maybe Nick Chubb after his big 2 games. Be like, hey, would you like a running back? Come in, score a lot of points. Maybe slide them a Jared Goff or a Carson Wentz or whatever like the worst quarterback is on your roster. See if you can get Fields in like a 2nd round pick.
So like Justin Fields has basically not moved since Sunday, which is really wild on Keep Trade Cut. If anybody isn't aware of that, it's a pretty slick website.
Hasn't moved and he also hasn't passed the football. So,
Two things are happening, or not happening rather, is his dynasty value is not changing, and nor is he passing the football. So like if his price drops or you can get him for considerably less than market value, I'd be interested in buying and seeing where it goes. If he was valued considerably less than he is right now, I would be absolutely buying because who knows, this could be a one and done front office. Like it's possible. Yeah. They're doing the most bizarre things you could ever imagine someone of doing. So it's perfectly well within the realm of possibility. It's just not that likely at this point anyway.
Do you think it's like an organizational failure? Like, do you think that the Bears like care more about winning in like the Bears way than they just do about winning? Like there's something weird to me about like the Bears, like, I don't know. It's just like, how can they keep hiring clowns, right? Like either they have no eye for talent or they care more about controlling their front office than about hiring the best people. And if that's true, then they're controlling them in a bizarre direction. Like, do you think that the Bears are just like, we're the monsters of the midway, we win with defense, we win with running the football? Like, is that like part of this ethos that they don't want to actually win in the 21st century? They want to enforce 1984 on their opponents?
It has to be like the identity of the team in some way, right? Like that's what the fans identify with. We need to get back to this. This is what our fans want. When in reality, their fans probably just want to win some friggin' football games.
Are there Bears fans? Like, I would just not be a Bears fan anymore.
Yeah, like if you had a choice.
It's a choice. You have a choice. You don't have to continue to be a Bears fan.
Yeah.
Did you see that tweet where the person was like, he like punched a hole through his TV in front of like 20 people that were over, and then his like wife left him, and then he was like, the Bears did this, and it's like, no, you did this.
I quote tweeted that tweet with that extremely popular meme of the guy like shooting the guy sitting in the chair and then being like, why did they do this?
Wait, okay, did you do this after or before? I literally quote tweeted it also, and I didn't see yours. And I said, in asterisks, I said, insert who shot Hannibal meme, and then quote, why would the Bears do this?
Yes, exactly. That is the meme. That's the one I posted. That's hilarious. Great minds. We are in sync here on the Sweat and Bullets podcast, and it will stay that way forever. And yeah, but unlike Justin Fields' fantasy value, it's probably coming down because I can't imagine this offense. So like part of my stance on this is that after this display, like things will get better. They're not going to pass 11 pass attempts every game.
Right.
things will get better. We're going to see them get up to 30 pass attempts, probably on average over the course of the year. Yeah. But what we're not going to ever see is probably them ever trying to be an up-tempo offense and like score fantasy points. And at that point, I'm just out. Like Justin Fields needs to be so special to score fantasy points in an offense that doesn't want to score real life points. And I'm not convinced that he's that special. And I'd just rather pivot to someone else. Like, there's so many players in his value range that are really attractive.
I mean, it's worth noting, right? Like that 2 separate coaching staffs have now worked with Fields. And sure, we think they're idiots, but there's some level of signal to the fact that 2 different coaching staffs, 3 different play callers have had Fields and decided not to throw the football, right? Like you'd think that if he was actually that good, well, they would consider trying it, right?
You got to think that somebody along the way would have said, hey, you know what? Why don't we let the kid that can throw the ball? And nobody ever had that thought. It can't just be us that thought that.
Right. So it's like I have to ascribe some level. Like to me, what I would argue is they shouldn't care. Right, like whatever their doubts are about his ability, they should be like, well, whatever. We think he sucks, but we're gonna find out, right? I mean, if he is terrible, better to find out now and then draft a new quarterback, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think it's terrible anyway. But my point is, like, I think that they might just be trying to hide him.
Could be. This is kind of my point with the. I was going to take this in 2 different directions. We're going to go this way first. This was my point way back in the 2020 draft.
Yeah, but Haskins and Tua.
Pardon me.
With Haskins and Tua.
About Haskins and Tua. Haskins had a shot. It wasn't good. Punt him, get the 2nd round pick you probably could have got at the time, and take Tua at 2nd overall instead of the defensive end, the generational one that hasn't been generational at all.
Chase Young. Yeah.
Chase Young, who's a fine player, don't get me wrong, but you just can't win in the NFL unless you have a high caliber quarterback. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa is an exceptionally high caliber quarterback, as evidenced by his play yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever Sunday was from today. Yeah. Very recently, in the most recent Miami Dolphins game, we were given sufficient evidence to know that Tua Tagovailoa is a Patrick Mahomes level passer, and there is nothing that convinced me otherwise, other than, of course, the fact that he's not a Patrick Mahomes level passer, and that was all a lie.